how it started banging right as we started. Hello and welcome inside live post-game edition Fever Insider Live. Brian Haenchen, Chloe Peterson, and Chloe. We have a friend. It's Tony East.
Our Tony North, as you referred to him the first time we talked to him about him. Welcome, Tony North, to the
I will be whatever today, but Chloe is down south where the Fever didn't really have a good time today, guys.
Yeah, no, they did not.
That was rough. 80-68. This is the first time, Tony, we've done this show with three people, so obviously we're supposed to find our rhythm. 80-68, Fever fall to the dream today. A really ugly game, as Tony alluded to. Fever shoot 34% from the field, 13.3% from three, 2 for 15. On the other side, Atlanta didn't do much better, but they did hit 7 threes. That was a bit of a difference. Officiating was an issue. Kelsey Mitchell alluded to a lot of the small things, 50-50 balls and things like that. Defensively, they weren't getting the turnovers, kind of a theme, I feel like, in a lot of the losses. But, Chloe, we'll start with you then, Tony. Just your general takeaways from the loss today.
I guess the biggest thing is they never really did find a rhythm, likely because of how much fouling there was. I mean, Indiana had 19 fouls, and then Atlanta had 24. Then you also have the technical fouls on Steph White, on Odyssey Sims. It was just a very, very much of a game that did not flow for a lot of reasons. The big one of it was the fouls.
I agree with that. The physicality was a part of it. And you were there, Chloe. You heard Stephanie White mention that, right? As a troubling thing for them and their rhythm and flow of the game was the number of whistles in the end. That's over 40 fouls in a 40-minute game. That's fun. That's exciting, right? That's what everybody wants to see. And for a Fever team that I don't know where you guys exactly feel, but the beginning of the game when they were playing really well, the flow of the game was more open and their pace was wide open. And some of that was that they got stops in the Dream missed 8 shots in a row. But once they kind of got out of that end-to-end flow and it was more staccato of a game, it never felt like the Fever could get to the style that they wanted, and they couldn't keep up.
Yeah, they thrive on doing, fast break. They thrive on the fast offense, and they just couldn't do that. And I think there were a lot of turnovers today too, but it just was not a pretty game for a multitude of reasons.
25 combined turnovers between the two teams, 12 for the Fever, 13 for Atlanta. We have some audio clips from the press conference. Let's start with that physicality that Tony talked about. Here's Lexi Hall on said physicality.
Coming in, it's playoffs. It's going to be physical, and we're going to have to learn how to play with that, especially this team is inherently a physical team. So for us, knowing that's the case and being able to respond, I think there's things that we're able to watch and film on how to handle that better, not letting the refs determine, how that physically is impacting us, but just continuing to play through that. It's definitely something we're going to have to work on and watch film and get better at, but that's part of playoffs, and that's part of the thing that we're going to have to get better at moving forward in this series.
Were you guys surprised by how much they struggled adjusting and adapting to that physicality as the game progressed? I mean, it never really seemed to get better, not really any rhythm to it. I know it's been a bugaboo at times this year, but at this point, did it surprise you?
Chloe, you're still muted, but the construction site.
Well, I figured out what's happening there. They have trash bags on the floor that they're putting in this big thing that they're then bringing up the elevator that's just back here, and then they're wheeling it. So that's it. But anyway.
The lengths that we go to, by the way, to get Dustin Dopriak, who's probably watching right now, a nice backdrop. Chloe's in an active war zone over there.
Exactly. This is all for you, Dustin. But anyway, I was not surprised that they struggled with the physicality, especially as with these 5 season-ending injuries they had, they lost some of their height. Obviously, Caitlin Clark, 6 foot, Sophie Cunningham, 6'1", and they kind of got replaced in the starting lineup with Odyssey Sims, who is 5'8", and then Lexi Hull's, I believe, a little bit shorter than Sophie Cunningham, and obviously the hardship players they brought in, not as tall. So that's kind of one of the big things, I think. And then they didn't have Damiris Dantas for this game either, and that was kind of on short notice after she suffered that concussion on Thursday. And she's a big part of that physicality and a big part of that spacing the floor, and they were just missing that.
Yeah, Damiris was a big loss too because their reserve front court was very often Howard and Turner together. And, a lot of what Turner's doing at the 4s with Point Boston. And so when Point Boston's not there because she's in foul trouble. So we heard Stephanie White talk about the size and physicality of this dream team that was gonna be something that she thought might be an issue for her team, but the way it kind of affected them was not like stunning to me, but just they could never quite figure out what to do with it or how to overcome it in a way that would make it an advantage for them. Not that that's easy. There's a reason the Dream won 30 games this year. But yeah, I guess I was a little surprised that it felt like an issue the entire game. And, as we've seen with this team sometimes this season, like when they get in their own head or when the officiating gets to them, and there were, I would say 4 or 5. I have 5 in my notes. I'm curious how many you guys have calls that I was like, what? And, Stephanie White frustrated having to use both of her challenges in the first half. It culminates to not thinking about the game all the time for like anyone, right? Including us. So I think that was a factor too of the physicality that really shaped the way this one went.
Let's talk about Chloe, did you have a follow-up on that?
I was just going to say that I agree with the whole point about the fouls making it unravel in a way. It felt especially beginning of the fourth quarter, the Dream went on that 9-0 run. Leah Boston got those 2 quick fouls within 6 seconds.
Her fourth foul was one of my 5, Chloe. Thank you for calling that one out. Bravo.
And Stephanie White couldn't challenge it because she already used both of her challenges successfully, I may say, in the first half. So I think it unraveled from there because obviously then Leah Boston had to go sit until like the 2-minute mark, I think, with her 5th foul. And then they were all obviously frustrated with all that too.
Real quickly, we encourage folks to get involved in the chat. You can do so. Drop the comments. We'll do as we normally do, have Q&A, thoughts, and all that at the end.
Dustin, drop your comments.
Yeah, we got Dustin right here. He says that he is, in fact, watching, and he says that the construction sounds add to the ambiance, he says. Speaking of the officiating, though, it felt like in the moment during that game, almost like they were kind of throwing in the towel. It was almost like they were trying to send a message to improve the officiating, if that makes sense. Just with the way that it erupted, it's like the tensions boiled over and it just kind of like everything focused to there. Like I felt the energy kind of focused to the officiating. And in my head, it's like, oh, I don't know what this comeback is going to happen. Now, that being said, after the game, and we'll play the clip here in a bit after we get your guys' thoughts, I thought that Stephanie White handled it well, a lot better, Chloe, than certainly you and I maybe were anticipating late in the game. I think we were texting back and forth like this has potential to maybe be an all-timer just in terms of rage at the officials.
Yeah.
But I thought she handled it well, and I think that, in that situation, it doesn't seem like a problem that they're going to allow fester and allow it to snowball and continue being an issue going into game 2. It's kind of like it sucks, it happened, we're going to pack it away, we're going to move on.
Yeah, Steph White has had her post-game rages at officials. Obviously, that May game against New York, and then that game against Connecticut where there were like 3 ejections and a fight. But I think, she kept it civil, cordial in a way, and I think it's because it is the playoffs and they're playing a very physical team in the sense of, their flow may not have been interrupted by their foul specifically, but just by the fouling in general. So I think she was talking more about how, they need to figure out how to find a flow, even if Atlanta's fouling, not even if the Fever are fouling. But if Atlanta is kind of fouling, that takes away from them being able to go in transition too.
I think with for my 5 bad calls, I do actually appreciate a little bit in this game that they just blew the whistle on everything the whole game. Like it was consistently like everything is a foul. And at some points it was like, well, that probably shouldn't have been a foul. And that's what most of these were. That's why I think the one that got the tech initiated made them so mad is Shea Petty getting, thrown around fighting for that rebound. Like all night they've called those kind of things and those little physical plays in the box out department. It didn't come that time. Shea Petty falls to the ground. Steph White tech comes immediately. And Odyssey Sims is right after, right? But it shows up in the foul numbers. It was that kind of game, and I also wondered. I'm not a part of the Indy Star text chain during the game. If this would be a post-game presser featuring comments of the sort, right? And nobody really had anything. We just heard Lexi Hall on it. Like they realized before the series would be physical, so I think that was kind of in terms of a surprise to them, even though they didn't handle it well. But they did a good job of being like, okay, it was just a physical game. We gotta chill out about it. Oh my gosh, the Lexi Hall 3rd quarter foul. I think it was her 3rd or 4th. I could not believe that. That was the first one that I typed in all caps.
Yeah, let's hear it. What were your other 3? Because we talked about 2 of them.
Yes.
4th.
Okay, the one in favor of the Fever was Odyssey Sims getting fouled at the end of the 2nd quarter. That was not a foul. That was a clean block. The Boston 4th one, the Shea Petty rebound, the Sims one, the Hall one in the 3rd quarter. Those 4 were obviously bad. And then the first Lexi Hall one where she like tapped Ryan Howard well away from the basket, and they called a late shooting foul. I was like, come on, that's what are we doing? And then how was it dream ball? I didn't understand that either, but regardless.
Yeah. It was so bad. I mean, it's a bad omen when they were going to the monitor so often at the beginning. You get burned through the 2 challenges, and that too interrupted the flow. Like that game at the beginning sucked. Like it started off so promisingly where everything was flowing at a good rhythm. Both teams were, finding their footing a little bit, and then it just went to hell in a handbasket.
Well, also, even if you don't want to be the officiating flow of the game, cost the fever of the game guy, like the foul trouble clearly kept Aaliyah Boston out. They played without Aaliyah or Kelsey Mitchell for a stretch in the fourth quarter. They had to, right? Like it clearly impacted their strategy and rotation in a way that even if you want to be like, stop talking about the refs of the fouls, it changed how they played. It had to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Here's what Stephanie White, that clip that we mentioned, here's what Stephanie White said about the officials after the game.
Just talking about the fouls, obviously I'd used both your challenges in the first half, and it seemed like the tensions boiled over in the fourth with those technical fouls. Just how frustrating was that today?
It's very frustrating. Very frustrating. Nobody likes to use their challenges in the first half, especially when they're successful. And look, it is what it is. This is not anything that's new. I think how we adjust, how we use it to our advantage on one end and try to be disciplined enough to not on the other end. It's an equal chess match as it is for playing an opponent, right? So, I think that's just an area that we're going to have to dive into how we get an advantage.
Again, that was Stephanie White on the officiating tonight, a big story, as it always seems to be in the WNBA, regardless of circumstances, for better, but usually worse. Aaliyah Boston tonight, she didn't score a ton, but Stephanie White made sure to highlight. I mean, the job that she did defensively tonight was a big factor, and then obviously limited a little bit there in the fourth quarter. But in general, for this team offensively, I mean, you get 3 points off the bench. It was kind of just a Kelsey Mitchell show the whole way. Odyssey Sims had a strong start, but other than that, there wasn't much support. Offensively, that was low-key a pretty terrible game for them just in terms of balance and productivity. Chloe?
Yeah, well, one thing I want to point out is the fact they only made 2 3-pointers out of 15. I don't know if I remember seeing that in a Fever game, because usually it's 6 or 7 at least 3-pointers in a game, and it's not like Atlanta did that much better. Or I guess they finished 7 of 22. Atlanta did, but at one point it was Fever
points.
were 2 of 13 and Atlanta was 3 of 12 at one point in the game. So it was not a good night from 3, I guess, for either team. But I think for Indiana, that's really something they hang their hat on, and that just did not fall. And when it comes to Aaliyah Boston too, I mean, she was obviously harmed by the foul trouble, but she did a good job with Breonna Jones in the sense of Breonna Jones only took 7 shots, and then Brittany Griner only played 8 minutes, only took 4 shots, and only made 1 of them. Like, I thought that was really interesting how just BG did not play much at all. Like, obviously she had an injury earlier in the season, but she's someone who has kind of had Aaliyah Boston's number for the first 2 years Aaliyah's been in the league. So it was really interesting to see, BG kind of have a step back there.
Yeah, so look, no offense to any specific player with this stat, but look, Bree Hall should not be tied for your lead in bench made shots, right? Like, they need the bench to be better and to make more shots, right? Those players did not score all outside of 1 Aerial Powers made basket, and they didn't do nothing. Like, they're playing defense, they're hitting the boards, but in general, like thematically in this series, Mitchell's going to be great. Boston's going to be important. Like, someone else has to make the Dream defense, which is very good, was second in the league this season, react to something, right? Whether that's Odyssey Sims rim pressure, and she had some of that in this game, or Lexi Hall making jumpers, or someone off the bench, and sometimes that's Damaris, who wasn't available, stepping up and playing better. Like, that was needed from them today, and they didn't get it at all. You already mentioned the threes, and I think that's a big part of it. And I think with this team specifically, Mitchell creates her own threes, but outside of her, like, most threes they take are created by someone else, and they're passing out. And so it's very rarely like a shot that everyone's like, why did they take that? Like, that, they make good sense. And so they just happened to have a bad shooting game. The Dream, to their credit, are not a team that allows a lot of threes. As for Aaliyah, like, early in the game, and Chloe, you've seen this her whole career, Bree Jones has been one of Aaliyah's toughest matchups, like her whole time in the W, right? And early in the game, I thought she was doing really well. being that side-to-side fulcrum at the top, swinging it around, getting guards involved that way. And look at that. She ends the game top on the Fever in assist because she's involved in that way, setting up other players. But she herself could not really get those good looks after her early game successes. And I think the Fever did a good job kind of adjusting to the way the Fever were trying to use her to get the ball side to side. So that's going to be the next thing for the Fever. Obviously, foul trouble is part of this, is getting Aaliyah more involved, more than just as the fulcrum of their offense. And I think that'll kind of unlock her and everybody else in a way that might help some more of those jump shots go in game 2.
Yep. Something I've been waiting for most of the season, I think, has been an Aaliyah Boston triple-double. Because I feel like it's going to happen eventually. There was one game where she had, I think it was 7 assists. But I think especially with Caitlin Clark being out now too, Aaliyah has become much more of, an assist person. So she's, as Steph White has said, she's the hub of their offense. So she is kind of throwing out those passes a lot more often. But I'm just waiting for her to get a triple double at some point in the near future. Probably not this season, but maybe next season.
Along those lines, just a comment from somebody I'm interested if you guys agree or disagree. When you end a game with AB having the most assists in a game, it kind of tells the whole story. Thoughts?
Well, sorry, I'm going first this time since I just talked about this. In some ways, I think that's how they're playing. They want to play through her, and that makes sense. We've talked about her creation abilities just now. But yes, that does speak to the challenges they have as a team with all their injuries, right? Odyssey Sims has been on the team for a month plus a few days, right? And she's their point guard. Kelsey Mitchell, great ball handler, not the best passer. They don't have a lot of high assists or high expected assists players. Kelsey Mitchell does it sometimes. So it does tell the story in not an inoffensive way. It's just the resources that they're dealt with. If anything, it tells me they need Sims to be a little better as a passer, but also she got hurt in this game. It just keeps happening to them at point guard. So figuring out how they can best distribute is a full team effort. And Aaliyah is kind of their best choice to do it, which she did well at it, but also does tell a story of where they are as a team and what they'll need in this series.
Yeah, I mean, ever since, obviously, Caitlin went down with her injuries, they have been obviously looking more to Aaliyah. There were those couple games where I think both games were against Chicago where Kelsey Mitchell had pretty high assist numbers. But other than that, it's kind of been Aaliyah's cross to bear in a sense where her assist numbers have been getting higher and higher and more consistent since, I think, Caitlin went out for the season.
Now the scene shifts back to Indianapolis for game 2, must win for the Fever, obviously, if they're to keep their season going. Chloe, we mentioned this last time we spoke, but it feels like this is the type of situation where the Fever are at their best, right? Where it just, for whatever reason, with this specific group where their backs are against the wall, adversity and all that stuff, it just seems to bring the best out of them. And that's something that Kelsey Mitchell talked about a little bit, just the importance of taking advantage of the home court advantage and how they end up doing so. I'm going to play that clip here real quick.
Attack defensively and offensively, we gotta be the one to punch first. Literally, you gotta be the one to throw a couple punches first. When it comes to making an impact on a game, you can't allow them to do it for you. I think you give yourself an edge here as a home team. So when they punched us hard, and so we have to do the same thing, vice versa, in order to get our momentum and get our rhythm running fast and off the ground early. We gotta be early in our communication with defense, and I think we're gonna have to compete. It's gonna be a gut check win if we want to win. You're gonna check your gut every possession. I think it's just about it sounds crazy, but who got it more? Who's gonna dig deeper? Who's gonna take the extra punch, the extra step, the extra 50-50, the extra everything is important going to Tuesday.
Pretty accurate, pretty blunt explanation, observation from Kelsey Mitchell, as is to be expected.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue the Fever have had kind of with these types of games is, today even, they kind of punched first that starting 11-4, but they just haven't been able to maintain those runs or maintain leads against, teams that are, at their same level or better than them. Obviously, they did it against the Mystics, they did it against the Sky, and then against Minnesota, who was resting Physicality to end the season. But against these teams that are more matched up with them, they haven't been able to maintain those leads. And they've talked about, going a full 40 minutes or playing a full 40 minutes, which kind of seems interesting to still talk about at this point in the season. But it's also they're still integrating new players too. Like, Odyssey Sims, as we've mentioned, she's only been on the team for a month. Aerial Power's big part of the rotation. She's been on the team for 3 weeks. Like, it's still just it's just an ongoing work in progress.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, in this game specifically too, like, they did punch first, like on the scoreboard. They were up 15-6 after 5 minutes. I can't dispute the scoreboard, right? That's what decides who wins. But I also messaged our chat in the 9, and at that point I was like, AB's balling right now. The Dream have missed 8 in a row, and the Fever up by 6. It's 17-11. Like, if those 2 boxes are checked, they need to be up a lot and look way better if they're going to feel good about how this is going. And they should feel good about winning after the first quarter. But they punched hard, but not nearly hard enough, right? And so even that part of the game was not quite what they needed. And I think their defense will be the key thing in the next game for punching hard, because in that stretch when they did look at their best early, they did what they've told us all season, and turned defense into offense. And when they don't have a lot of their best initiators or point guards from all season, that is an effective way for them to actually score a lot. Those games that Kelsey Mitchell had a bunch of assists against Chicago, here comes a goofy zone defense. They get a bunch of stops. They're in transition. They're scoring, right? So somehow they've got to find a way to just be a little more consistent on defense. And that's a little concerning after they allowed less than 40% shooting and still gave up 80 points. So that's where I think they'll start their focus, is either getting stops or forcing a few more turnovers in the way that can get them in the open floor, make it easier for them to score against this huge physical Dream team.
Chloe, I think you had the stat was that the Fever made 1 field goal over the final 7:42 of the quarter, and they were still only down by 5 points.
Yeah.
And that's the other side of it, too, is it was astonishing both ways that the Fever weren't up by more in the first half, and they weren't down by more in the second half. And Atlanta, too, not for nothing. I mean, that their layup shooting approach, their approach to shooting layups is interesting, I guess. Bad, some might even say. I mean, they were dreadful, especially there at the start with the layups. I mean, just freaking brutal. And yet, like Tony said, it's still, only got up to 9, and for whatever reason, they just couldn't push it up. Further, it comes back to bite them, kind of a microcosm representative of the season.
You heard Alicia Gray walking off the floor with Holly Rowe on the broadcast. She said, I got to make some freaking layups, right? Like, that was really hurting the Dream in this game in a lot of ways. And they love their layups. They love their threes. Carl Smesko is going to try to find every little efficiency for the whole course of a full game. Eventually, the hope for them is that the odds will be in their favor, and they were in this one. And keep them away from the rim. That's got to be a priority for the Fever in the next game. And I believe, Chloe, you were there too. Like, Kelsey Mitchell talked about point of attack defense being a focus, right, for game 2. That was, I think, maybe the most concerning thing, is how easily Atlanta, who wants to take a bunch of threes, was getting to the rim for a lot of this game.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing with the size difference too. Like, obviously you have Kelsey Mitchell with Odyssey Sims. They're both 5'8". You have Shea Petty. I think she's 5'10", I believe. And, when they're going up against Ryan Howard, Nance Hillman, who are 6'1", 6'2", at the same position, they're going to be able to kind of get to the rim more. And that's just a size difference kind of thing.
Any other final thoughts or wanting to spin it ahead to next or to Tuesday before we start diving into the comment section? Tony, I'll let you start while the noise dissipates behind Chloe.
Yeah, like I kind of mentioned this a little offhand earlier, but just someone beyond the stars is going to have an offensive forceful game. I think Kelsey Mitchell was brilliant, right? 27 again. She spins that out of nowhere. Aaliyah had her moments where you could tell what she was trying to do and how she could probably stand to be a little better, but like found her impact on offense. Someone else. Sims has been that at times during their late push. Hall's made her threes more down the stretch of the season. Natasha Howard's had huge games for them at times this season when they really needed to. Someone else needs to get to that level to keep up, because the Dream stars most of this game did have it. Like, Gray and Howard didn't make their threes and they still were effective. So that would be like my final, besides defense, overarching thing they need for the next game.
I think as well, Lexi Hall looked to have a good game. She just did not make her shots.
Yeah, totally agree.
There were multiple wide open threes I saw that she took. She just didn't make them. She was 1 of 5 from 3-point range. I guess 3 of 13 from the field. But she had what looked to be a good game defensively. Otherwise, it was just the shooting that just was not connecting today for her.
I thought Hall was good besides those shots. I agree.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect jumping off point. That was the first comment that I was going to go to, because I mean, it wasn't just that she was missing threes. I mean, those were some wide open in rhythm threes where they're kicking out to the corner, and it just for whatever reason, that's where their season's kind of gone offensively, where they haven't fallen consistently. And Tony, to your point, she might be the one, or is one of the ones that they need that scoring from. And she got to the 9 today, but she should have and could have probably had a lot more there to get things going.
Well, also like 2 for 8 on 2s, and she's gotten so much better at patient in the lane shots these last couple of weeks. And that wasn't even there today. I think she airballed one of them, right? Like, just you can chalk it up to off night. That happens to players all the time. But like, it's the playoffs. You know, they're way more magnified when they happen. And I mean, she'll tell you she wanted to be better making them, right? So yeah, she's got. I agreed with comment of letter name. Disappointing with the missed shots. Yes.
DXTRXTD.
All right, I tried to read the name and it wasn't a name.
Here's one from KP10, I think is how you pronounce that. Hey guys, I think we started the game well in the second quarter. The Dream slowed the game down and got really physical. But I think the 2 calls on Aaliyah Boston at the beginning of the fourth quarter was when the Fever lost. It's a good observation, I'd say.
Yeah, I think, as we mentioned at the top of the show, that's kind of when things started unraveling for the Fever. So obviously they got really frustrated with those 2 foul calls, and then, you know, Steph White got the tech, Odyssey Sims got the tech, and then at that point it seemed like it was getting a little bit out of hand for the Fever.
The Dream broke it open really quick at that point too. Like, the history, remember this game as a 12-point Fever loss? Like, they were down 5 going into the fourth. We've all seen them come back from that the last even month with these hardship players. Like, they could have done it, and then they were down a big resource.
It was kind of hard to believe they're only down 5. Like, I forgot that just looking back, and when I was writing my story, I was like, wow, it was only a 5-point game going in the fourth quarter. Like, they had it right there, despite everything. Refs calls have been an issue with the Fever all season. Shouldn't the Fever's game plan to win included? At this point, it is predictable. I would say that maybe applies to all teams, but I also am not entirely sure how you plan for bad officiating.
Yeah, I mean, Natalie Nakase, Golden State's coach, she got a tech today too at Golden State versus Minnesota, and you know, she talked after the game about how she wants the officials to give them a fair fight. Obviously, I did not watch the game because there's pregame stuff going on here, but I think it's more of a league-wide thing. I know Cheryl Reeve, throughout the season, regular season, she talked about officiating issues, and I think a lot of coaches talked about officiating issues just throughout the season.
If every team thinks the officiating is bad, there are times it creeps into my head like maybe it's just the expectations that are wrong. But that said, we already ran through 5 obviously wrong calls, and 4 of them disadvantaged the Fever. So I understand their frustrations. Maybe their plan should be, guys, you cannot let it affect you mentally in any way.
Yeah, you got to learn to just pack that stuff up and move
on. Only the coach. The Stephanie White can get attacked. No one else. Everybody else.
I think that's easier said than done too.
Oh yeah,
letting it affect you mentally. Like, that's something Steph.
Well, if you're having a bad work day, you can't let it affect you, right? It's so easy for me to say that.
They always talk about it, like after every game where they have these officiating issues, where Steph White's talked about it. Kelsey Mitchell's talked about it. Lexi Hull talked about it today, but it's a lot easier said than done, because when you're in the moment, you feel so high or so hot on the issue that it just overtakes you for a minute.
Chloe, we have you for another 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. From Ashley M, I think the lack of depth is going to come into play in the next game as well. Yeah, I agree. But also, I mean, it's not like the bench got a ton of run today either.
Yeah.
I mean, they leaned heavy on those starters. The minutes leader, Ariel Powers, played 17. Brianna Turner played 12. Next close Shea Petty, 9. And then it's 90 seconds apiece for Bree Hall, Michaela Timpson. I mean, they leaned heavy on starters.
Yeah, missing Damiris Dantas affected them a lot, especially with this physicality of Atlanta, because especially Damiris was starting to find her 3-point shot before she got this concussion, and she would have been able to space the floor out a little bit more and get them more open looks in the paint, or even maybe help them in the 3-point conversation too. So they really missed her specifically today, as someone who has been with the Fever this entire season and kind of a late scratch in a way, where she got the concussion on Thursday and they just didn't have her. It wasn't like they've been playing without her for a month or so like everyone else who's been out. But I think that really affected them, especially depth-wise.
schedule-wise, they play Tuesday, like New York, where Brianna Stewart just got her, and their overtime game, they play Wednesday. Like, that extra day could matter for someone like Dantas, who's going through concussion protocol. And you can say she's a, role player off the bench. She might not have played a lot in this game, like most of their bench. And I generally would agree with that. But, like, Natasha Howard did not play particularly well today. I think there's a reason she only played 24 minutes. And, like, very often, Stephanie White's only choice was to go small. Their second most used lineup had Powers and Hull as their 3-4. They didn't have two traditionally sized front court players. Like, could they have gone to Dantas and another one of their bigs more often? Maybe so. Like, that was a tactical loss to not have her, even if she's only a 10 to 15 minute player. So that's one thing with their depth. But yes, I mean, we already mentioned it. Bree Hall made one. Ariel Powers made one. That's it. Like, they need more from their second unit.
Yes.
Yep. I just want to say, I think this all just dates back to Tawana Bonner leaving the team.
It does.
They had a good amount of post depth when she obviously signed on, and then obviously it didn't work out for those reasons. But they didn't kind of bring in someone like DB to replace her, and that's not necessarily the Fever's fault, because it's difficult to find somebody like her in the middle of the season when the season's already 10, 15 games in. But they really hurt from not having that depth, because it's still Tawana Bonner could be in the front court in a different way than Lexi Hull could, especially even though Lexi Hull took over a spot in the starting lineup. Tawana Bonner could play more front court than Lexi Hull can.
Chloe, quickly, Damiris Dantas, did you trying to listen to pregame this morning? It was like inside of a fishbowl, inside of a cave. Couldn't really make out what was being said, heads or tails of it. But what did Steph White say about Dantas?
She didn't provide any specific timeline, which I think is normal when it comes to concussions. There are stages you have to go through in concussion protocol in order to be cleared again to play. And obviously she didn't say what stage Dantas was in kind of coming into today. But it's different for every player when it comes to concussion protocol. But she said she hopes she can be available on Tuesday, but that's obviously not up to her. It's not up to Dantas. It's up to how she can get through that concussion protocol.
If I can wildly speculate, and a reminder to anyone listening, I am just wildly speculating. I think if you want Dantas to play in game 2, it is a good sign that she was there and was able to fly right now, and she was on the bench during the game. That would either suggest to me that it's not so bad that she could fly, or that they thought it was possible she would be available today and then wasn't. So, again, no idea. Completely speculating. But I would consider it personally a good sign that she was at this game and was able to fly.
I agree.
If I can counter your speculation with more speculation, Chloe Bibby also flew. Chloe Bibby also flew. Everybody floated. So, what are you going to do?
You don't poke holes in an argument that fast. Let it breathe for like a minute next time.
Yeah, but I do actually think it's a good sign that Damiris Dantas was able to sit in an environment like this, because 100%. It was only 3,800 people, but it was really loud in here. At least I thought it was really loud because so for her to be able to sit in this type of environment, is a good sign that she is progressing through the concussion, but obviously all speculation.
How are the refs chosen for the playoffs? Chloe actually picks the refs.
Yeah.
Do you
I
think
do not know that one? If anyone is serious, I have no idea.
Do either of you have an actual answer to that one? I just thought it's a good question. I just assumed none of us have an answer to it.
I do not.
Assigned by the league, I think you only get one game per series. That's all I got.
Interesting. Collection of letters and numbers. Do you think we will get more Hall or Timpson minutes on Tuesday? Petty gave up so many uncontested layups. Experience is great, but they're so small compared to Atlanta.
I think that depends on if Damiris Dantas is able to play. I think, if she's able to go, then she'll obviously fill in where she's supposed to fill in. But even then, I don't know. I feel like they've moved away from Michaela Timpson more and more from in the second half of the season. And I don't know if she has the experience to play in this kind of playoff environment, especially with the amount of physicality that Atlanta brings. But
I like Michaela Timpson as a player. I do not think the time to try to secretly unleash her is when a team has Naz Hillman, Brittany Griner, and Bree Jones on the floor. 2 of them on the floor, basically a full game. Hall, I suppose I agree that Petty had some tough defensive moments this game, including one where she did like a very clear "my bad" after getting beat to the rim. And like those ones are always tough because you got to get beat real bad to admit it during live play. And Shea Petty's made shots for them most of the season, has done exactly what she hoped and made threes. But if she's not going to guard, like maybe you do opt for size, or maybe Odyssey Sims doesn't get hurt and you don't need Shea Petty for more than 5 or 6 minutes in the game anyway.
One last comment here before we let Chloe get to her flight. We need Angel Reese, we being the Fever. I do not need Angel Reese. The Fever need Angel Reese. They always go small. I'm sick of it. Tired of it. The loss of Duana, Caitlin, and Sophie cost the Fever big time. They need a big rebounder and defender and someone who compete with height. Chloe?
I mean, I don't necessarily think the Fever need Angel Reese because of those reasons. I think obviously Sophie could compete. Duana Bonner obviously could compete, and they lost. It's not really the Fever's fault that both Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham had season-ending injuries this year. But I think, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
Could the Fever, who are 11th in defensive rebounding, use a better rebounding player? Yeah, probably. I think the 4 they need would probably need to be somebody who can space the floor. And look, Duana Bonner was the hope to be that. And I predicted before the season that at some point, Duana Bonner would start at the 4 and Natasha Howard would move to the bench. Whoops, that prediction was wrong. But that's just kind of what I feel like of the Fever identity. And we'll see what they decide to do with that. Howard can be and has been a good rebounder at times this season, but her defense today wasn't there. 4 turnovers. There's a reason she only played 24 minutes, way less than every other starter.
Yes, I agree that, they need a 4 that can space the floor. And that's obviously, as you mentioned, what DB brought, but that's also something they can go and look for in free agency this offseason, assuming free agency happens. Who knows what's going to happen? Everything's up in the air. We don't know. So
to be clear, Angel's terrific, would make them better, but not the perfect fit next to Boston to me.
I mean, not for nothing, too. I'd be curious on how the fit inside the room would be. Just in general, obviously, there's a lot going on with her right now in Chicago. I'd be curious to see how that would fit too. But I mean, it would be interesting, and it would make Chloe's job and her mentions so much more fun. And Tony and I could just sit back, relax, and watch the show.
My mentions are already so fun.
Really? What are some good ones today? Are they calling for the coach's head?
Not that I saw today.
Good.
I did think it was fun today that it was a whiteout. Atlanta held a whiteout, but they did not wear their white uniforms. That was fun to me. I thought it was.
That was like problematic for the TV viewing experience, legitimately. It looked like a Fever home game.
Well, they did cheer a lot for Atlanta, I will say.
Good crowd.
That was kind of something I was thinking about because before the game too, there was a giant line for Sophie Cunningham, and people were having her sign these Dream playoff shirts. So I was wondering what kind of split there would be between Fever Dream fans, but it was very Dream centric here.
Chloe, you might know this better, but Atlanta hadn't won a playoff game in a long time, correct?
Yes, they hadn't won since 2018.
7 years? So also good thing the fans were rowdy. They actually had a chance for one this year.
Yeah, now the Fever are going to host
Speaking of long playoff droughts.
The Fever are going to host their first playoff game since 2016 on Tuesday. So, and that was back when I looked at the schedule for the 2016 playoffs. Very stupid schedule. It was like the first and second team, or the top 2 teams, get like triple buys into the semifinals.
Holy smokes!
And then the first two rounds were like a single elimination. Then there was a best of 3, and then there were the semifinals. And like I looked at the 2016 playoffs, I think it was Lynx, Sparks 1 and 2. Who would have thought they would make it to the finals because they didn't play until the semifinals? So,
who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Huh. But yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. A thriller, by the way, Liberty Phoenix. That game went to overtime. Nobody really wanted to make a shot until overtime, and then New York caught fire. Minnesota rallied from that 10-point deficit. The Valkyries coach almost said the F word on TV, and that's your WNBA playoff update with Vegas and
Brianna
Seattle.
Stewart may or may not have gotten injured.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Was it a foot?
It looked to be her knee.
Knee, yeah, uh-oh.
She tried to play, and then she was just hobbling around the court. And I was like, get her off of there.
Damn.
But they won anyway, so.
That's brutal.
We'll just see about the future of the New York Liberty if Breanna Stewart is out for any significant amount of time.
Maybe the Fever will sign her. Who knows? It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Tony, anything you want to promote? Anything you want to plug, buddy? This is your time. You have the floor now.
No, same stuff as you guys. Game 1 story will be out later today, maybe tomorrow morning, and then on to Game 2. Fever have not a lot to fix, but like a lot of, I would say a lot of little things that stacked up in this one.
Yes, follow Tony at Tony R East, I believe it is.
Yes.
Read his
I
stories.
should have said that part.
Read the stories on the next. Also read our stories on IndyStar.com.
I'm
you
not
say
going to
read his
come on
stories
the
on
IndyStar show and
IndyStar.com?
tell people
No,
to
I-
go somewhere
Yes,
else.
that's what I wanted you to do, Tony. I was giving you the floor to promote your own site.
I said read his stories on the next. Read
here.
our stories, as in Brian and I's stories, on IndyStar.com.
Yes. Tony, in all seriousness, where can people find your work?
Yeah, the next, we got people at every playoff game. We had 2 people in this game in Atlanta. So every game throughout the whole playoffs and many colleges.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Tony, maybe will be back with us after Game 2. Chloe and I will definitely be back. We would love to have Tony back. It's independent time, and then we'll have a season wrap show whenever this ride ends. Chloe and I both have stories up on IndyStar.com. Josh ran the live blog. No Fever practice on Monday. I'm learning as I read my email. So back Tuesday, there's a shoot around. There's the game.
There is no shoot around.
There is no shoot around?
No. So we'll have coverage starting at Stephanie White's press conference.
Which is great. Which is wonderful. Again, please remember any anger that you have for Tony and I, please send those to Chloe Peterson at Chloe Peterson or CA Peterson at IndyStar.com. How did you say his last name?
It's Dopirak.
Dopirak. Dustin Dopirak.
I'm not
Is he
even
still
gonna try.
on?
Have you heard on the fan? They have a button they hit where he said his last name, so they don't have to say anymore.
Oh, that's smart. We should get drops for next season. All right. Anyway, Chloe's gonna miss her flight if we keep jacking around. So, Tony, thank you so much, man, for hopping on with us. It was a blast, buddy. Chloe, have a safe flight. I hope everything goes smoothly. For those two, my name is Brian Haenchen, sometimes known as Hank, and we will talk to you guys again in a couple days.